It's almost here. Manchester City versus Inter Milan in the Champions League final is almost upon us. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Yes, it is Manchester City versus Inter Milan. Those two teams are going head to head in the Champions League final in Istanbul tomorrow night. It is all set to go down to be seen who will be crowned the kings of Europe for this season. Will it be Manchester City who are chasing that infamous and phenomenal history-making treble-winning season? Or will it be Inter Milan who are looking to upset Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, stop them from winning the treble, and in doing so, will claim their fourth Champions League title? It's all set to go down in Istanbul, and I'm here to preview and look ahead to tomorrow night's monumental and massive game of football in prospect. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. And I also encourage you as well to get involved in the comment section. I'm sure you have your own thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, on this massive game of football that is set to go down in Istanbul tomorrow night between these two top clubs right now. And I'm sure it will all make for interesting and great reading. So do get involved down there, especially your predictions. This is, after all, a preview. So without further ado, let's get on with said preview and talk about Manchester City versus Inter Milan. Let's do this. First and foremost, Man City chasing an infamous treble. I think I remember reading that only 10 teams from across Europe have managed to achieve said treble in the past. City, or it's either 9 teams and City could be the 10th, or there's 10 teams and City could be the 11th. I can't remember now that I've said it. But either way, City will be the first team in England to achieve the treble since Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United team back in 1999. And the only thing that is, or the only team that is standing in their way of making that achievable is Inter Milan. Now, looking into this game, look, Manchester City coming off the back of winning the FA Cup last weekend. They weren't at their best by any means, but they still had enough quality and enough in a tank to get the job done against their fierce rivals of Manchester United. Obviously, a couple of weeks beforehand, they managed to claim their third on the bounce Premier League title. They won the Premier League title. They won the FA Cup. They have the domestic double under their belts. And now, it's the big one. It's the one that arguably they want more than most. It's the biggest game of their careers probably so far. It is the Champions League final, chasing that all-elusive Champions League trophy, wanting the trophy that will basically bring everything that we've known about Manchester City since their takeover, since their lottery win over 15 years ago, to not necessarily a conclusion, but to round off what would be a phenomenal journey from literally rags to riches in that sense. This is it for City. This is it, because you feel like if they don't win this one, they won't win the Champions League title at all. This is a massive opportunity. This is a game in which they go into as the strong favourites, the firm favourites, the heavy favourites in some people's eyes, because many people don't necessarily see the Serie A as a serious league anymore. A lot of people look down on it. Does that mean it's a foregone conclusion? In my eyes, no. I personally believe that Inter Milan have got tools in their arsenal. They've got some ways of playing that can thwart Manchester City and can cause City some food for thought and some problems. I genuinely believe that this isn't as foregone a conclusion as what many people are saying, but I do agree with the overall consensus that City should be winning this game. City should be the firm favourites, and ultimately, the treble very much does seem like it's going to be happening, unfortunately. But I do believe that this will be a slightly more closer game than maybe what most people are thinking. City come into this game like I say, with the bit between their teeth, they've had an unbelievable end to their Premier League season. And even when they're not playing great, they still have clutch players that will produce moments for them. Like I say, last weekend's Manchester United, they weren't at their best, but they still have their captain Ilkay Gundogan, who produced 2 brilliant moments to, of course, steal the game and take the game to Manchester City and obviously help them win that infamous FA Cup trophy. They come into this game knowing that this will cement everything that they've been talking about. This is it for Man City. This is it as far as what they're concerned. Not only are they chasing a treble, but they're also chasing their first Champions League title. Would be a phenomenal achievement overall by City and Pep Guardiola. And obviously when you look at their squad, when you look at the talent and the ability that they have available to them, when you look at the manager, when you look at the coaching staff, how in-depth they are, how well drilled they are, the mentality, everything that goes into making this side be as phenomenal and as brilliant as what they have been, not just this season, but in seasons gone by. The hunger that is still there, the desire is still there, the determination is still there. Everything is in place for City to go on and become champions of Europe after the final whistle goes on Saturday night. But like I say, standing in their way is Inter Milan. Internazionale! As Jamie Carragher said, that clip is absolutely incredible. Third in Serie A this season. Coppa Italia winners. End of the season pretty strongly, by all things considered. 11 wins in 12 in all competitions towards the back end of the season, including that Coppa Italia win over, I believe, Fiorentina. A phenomenal achievement by Inter. And of course, they played excellently in both legs of the Champions League semi-final against their fierce rivals AC Milan to, of course, get to this stage. They have the ability to cause City some problems. And we know that City are not impenetrable. We know that City aren't invincible. We know that they can be got at in certain aspects. But you need to play smart. You need to play... you need to be focused through the entirety of the game. If the game lasts for 93 minutes or 94 minutes, you need to be on point and focused for 95 minutes. That's just how much focus you need, how much attention to detail you need in these games. You need to be switched on right from the first whistle to the last. We know how this is going to be set up. We know that City are going to enjoy the lion's share of possession, and it's going to be about how well they can break down what should be a very stubborn and very resolute Inter Milan defence. A defence, by the way, that has kept 8 clean sheets this season in this competition across this campaign. Nothing to be sniffed at. A pretty good achievement overall. Inter have proven their defensive capabilities. Whether they can hold out against the City side that are obviously gunning for this competition more than most obviously remains to be seen. This City side are strong in all areas, but they can be got at. For me, this follows a very similar pattern of City are going to press high up. They're going to try and suffocate Inter Milan. And it's all about whether or not they can break down Inter Milan's defence. For Inter Milan, it's going to be about sitting back, soaking up the pressure, and then trying to find areas to hit City in on the counter-attack that will cause them some damage. And for me, it would be down City's left-hand side. It's hard to find a weakness in this City side, of course. They are very strong from back to front. But for me, if I had to pinpoint a weakness, it would be down their left-hand side. Now, depending on who plays, City go into this game with a clean bill of health. In the past, obviously, City have often been accused, or Pep Guardiola has often been accused of overthinking these types of massive games. And especially when he's got a clean bill of health and at full strength, he seems to overthink it more than most, and Inter Milan will be hoping that that can happen again here. But when you look at the defensive side of things, obviously Guardiola's kind of adopted and changed and modified this sort of three at the back system. Ederson in goal is obvious, and then a back three of Kyle Walker at right centre back, Ruben Diaz in the centre of the back three, and then of course I believe it will probably be Nathan Ake as the left-sided centre back. Even if it isn't Ake, you'd still probably predict that that left-sided centre-back is probably the main weakness of that City team if you had to obviously pick one. Down that right-hand side of Inter Milan is going to be crucial to their counter-attack, you feel. The likes of Denzel Dumfries, who likes to get forward and attack, will likely be key for Inter Milan to try and get down that side of the defence. And Lautaro Martinez, who works tirelessly in that striking position, is going to have to make runs down that side to try and aid the attack. And then his strike partner, because we believe that obviously it's Inter won't change their formation, they'll go with a 3-5-2 as they tend to do. His strike partner, whether it be Edin Dzeko, who Manchester City fans will obviously know very well, or Romelu Lukaku, who would love, I think, to obviously prove and have maybe a point to prove, especially to those in England and maybe even to his parent employers of Chelsea, of course, in terms of him coming back into the Chelsea fold, depending on how Mauricio Pochettino sees his Chelsea future. They're going to be key. They're going to be vital to try and obviously penetrate this back line of Manchester City. Down that right-hand side of Inter Milan is going to be key, in my opinion, because the other side will obviously see Kyle Walker, whose recovery pace may just be too much for a lot of the Inter Milan players to handle. Down that left-hand side, Ake's not as pacey. Ake's not as quick. He's smart and he's had a fantastic season, in my opinion. But again, by process of elimination and by probably default, he's probably got the weaker side that maybe, just maybe, Inter might fancy their chances of trying to attack and maybe trying to get some joy out of. Ake is going to have to rely on the likes of Rodri for cover, on the likes of Jack Grealish maybe to get back, because you would imagine that obviously John Stones and Rodri are going to be the two CDMs. Stones is more of the kind of like false DM sort of position that he's been playing and being modified to. And then of course ahead of them you'll have Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan as the central midfielders. Gundogan possibly playing his final game for Manchester City. What a way it would be to kind of leave. Not only was he the hero last week in the FA Cup, but obviously he's captaining the side that may just go on to win the Champions League for the first time in their history. What a way to leave, and what a kind of leaving present that would be to the Manchester City fans if he again popped up as the hero on this day. De Bruyne, we know all about De Bruyne. His main goal is going to be the creative influence in this team to try and link up play with obviously striker Erling Haaland. Likelihood is it's going to be Bernardo Silva on the right hand side. Obviously he's the man for the big occasions for Pep Guardiola. Not Riyad Mahrez. He's going to be there. He can drop in to that midfield, create an extra man. He can stretch the play out wide. He can go forward as an inside forward. He can mix it up brilliantly and cause some problems and try and stretch, obviously, this back line of Inter Milan to try and help break them down. He's a very clever player, as much as I may not like him personally. But he is a very clever player, and I'm sure his influence is going to be key for Man City, similar to the likes of Dumfries and Lautaro Martinez of Inter. On the left-hand side, like I say, Jack Grealish, it's going to be interesting to see how he copes. And like I say, if Inter are going to target down his side, he's got to obviously produce a big work rate in this game. That obviously means he's got to be helping out his left centre-back, back and forth as much as possible. And then obviously trying to knit things together and be creative when they are attacking. And then, of course, it's all about Erling Haaland up front. Had a very quiet game last weekend. Had a couple of opportunities, but other than that, had a very quiet game. But in this competition, this is his competition. He gobbles up goals in this competition, and I'm sure he will get a couple of opportunities in this game to really kind of put Inter Milan to the sword. Whether he does or not remains to be seen, of course. So we know how City are going to play. We know how Inter Milan have to try and counter. We know that they're specifically likely to challenge and to try and get down that the City left-hand side. And it's all about whether or not they can actually produce key moments, be key in their decisive moments, and obviously make the right choices and the right decisions. They'll obviously be hoping that City maybe have an off day, whether it be in front of goal or whether it be in terms of possession, and they're a bit slow and a bit lackluster at times. They're going to be hoping that that may help them as well. But mainly it's down to them. Mainly it is down to Inter Milan and how they're going to set up. And you would imagine that Inter are going to make it tough. They're going to try and make it as tough as possible. We know they're going to try and be resolute defensively. We know that Onana is going to be in goal, Acerbi, Bastoni, maybe even Skriniar. Now, it's a bit weird because Skriniar has basically been injured towards the back end of the season. And I think for the last game in Serie A, I think he was back on the bench. Allegedly, according to some sources, he may actually start the Champions League, which is a massive risk in my opinion. It's a massive game and you're throwing Skriniar into the deep end a little bit, having come back from injury. Is that a wise move? Possibly not. You move on to the midfield. Like I say, Dumfries on the right-hand side I think is going to be key, both defensively and offensively. You'll probably have DiMarco. I think is it DiMarco? DiMarco on the left-hand side. You'll have Mkhitaryan likely in the middle. Brozovic, I think he's going to be key in that DM role. And of course Barella. Barella, fantastic player. I think this is going to be a massive stage for him to showcase his ability. It's going to be interesting to see if he can do that in against that really tough Man City team, and his work rate and his creativity are going to be put to the test here. He's going to have to try and maybe either focus on one of the three in the central midfield, and I say one of the three. I'm maybe not so much John Stones, but maybe more so Gundogan maybe in terms of his role and focusing on him. And then up front, like I say, you've got Lautaro Martinez and then one of Edin Dzeko or Romelu Lukaku, and both have got a point to prove. Edin Dzeko would love, I think, to get one back on his former club. And I think Romelu Lukaku still has a point to prove in England, and a point to prove to obviously everybody watching, and a point to prove especially to Mauricio Pochettino, who may fancy him being back at Stamford Bridge next season. Obviously, he's only on loan at Inter Milan, so he'll be back at Stamford Bridge in the summer, and then from there they'll probably discuss the future of Romelu Lukaku and see whether he's worth keeping or whether he's worth trying to move on. It'll be interesting to see how that one develops, but for the here and now, that is likely to be the gist of the Inter Milan team. There are a few selections there that may cause the manager a few headaches, but like I say, it's going to be very intriguing to watch how this game unfolds between two styles that counteract each other. They can often make for the best games, and I'm hoping more so that this is going to be a very good game of football. I'm hoping it's not going to be completely one-sided, but I do see the lion's share of possession, like I say, falling to Manchester City, and then it's all about whether or not they can break down this Inter Milan defence, and alternatively, whether or not Inter can win the ball back from deep, as they have done so much so in the Champions League this season, winning the ball back from deep and springing counter-attacks, whether they can do that one more time in this game. And when they do so, it's all about making the right decisions to, of course, hurt this back line of Manchester City and maybe causing them some damage. In my opinion, I've said this time and time again, Ederson to me, is somewhat overrated. I don't really rate Ederson that much. Test him as much as possible, in my opinion. We'll see how this one goes. We'll see if obviously Inter Milan can obviously achieve that. And then, but it's going to be tough for Inter. We know that it's going to be tough for Inter. Not only are they coming up against the best manager in world football right now, in my opinion, in Pep Guardiola, they are coming up against a phenomenal starting 11 with just as good of a bench and just as strong depth as you can get. Like, this City team are built beautifully. Created masterfully, and are just relentless and ruthless in everything that they have done. It would have been easy for this City side to have said, we've won so many competitions, we don't need this, but they keep going again and again in all these competitions. And then to do it this season, where they've gone again in the Premier League, they've gone again in the FA Cup, and still managed to maintain a push for the Champions League, which arguably is the one that you could say they want more than most, is phenomenal. And it's going to be about whether or not Inter can handle that. Obviously, there's massive pressure on City as well. Like I say before, if they don't win this game, Jesus Christ, you'd have to imagine what they would who they'd have to go up against in a final to actually go on and win it. They've had their opportunity against Chelsea. They essentially bottled it. They've got a massive opportunity now against Inter Milan, a team that they are heavy favourites to go up against and win. And if they don't win it this season, some questions may need to be asked a little bit. It's been a fantastic season by City already, but maybe some questions in terms of their Champions League push may have to be answered a little bit. In terms of a prediction, just to round things off, in terms of a prediction from me, like I say, City to have the lion's share of possession, Inter Milan to try and hit them on the counter-attack. That's probably going to be the entire story of how this game is going to pan out. And as much as my heart wants to say Inter Milan, because I love a bit of an underdog story, and the Champions League often throws these kind of underdog stories up, of course. As much as I want an underdog story, as much as I want Inter Milan to obviously thwart Manchester City, stop them from winning the Champions League for the first time as a whole, and then of course winning the treble as a bonus. And I guess I'm not alone in that either. I guess a lot of football fans, especially ones in England, are obviously hoping for the same thing. I can't look past City. I want Inter Milan to win so bad, and I think that they can cause City some problems, but I think City's strength and depth, I think City's strength on the pitch, given any 11 that they put out, is going to be too much for Inter Milan to handle. And that's why I think we have to completely make peace with the fact that City are not only going to win the Champions League for the first time, but they're also going to win the treble. If we haven't already made peace with that, then obviously within the next 24 to 48 hours, we really should start to make peace with that. So, in my opinion, City win this game. As much as I want an upset, as much as I crave an upset and would love to watch an underdog story play out before our very eyes in Istanbul. It wouldn't be the first time an underdog story is played out in Istanbul, let me tell you. Speak from personal experience of that, being a Liverpool fan, of course. But I can't look past City in this game. I can't look past the form of the likes of Ilkay Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, and especially Erling Haaland, who makes this competition his own in this capacity. So, for me, City win this game. I'm going to say that this game will end 3-1 to City. I'm going to say 3-1. Haaland to score, Gundogan to round it off, and then I'm going to go with... let's go with Lukaku to score for Inter. Let's go with Lukaku to score for Inter, just because. But those, of course, are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the Champions League final coming up tomorrow night? Manchester City lock horns with Inter Milan, Champions League final. Who will come out on top? What are your thoughts, your comments, opinions? But most of all, of course, what are your predictions on how tomorrow night's massive Champions League game in Istanbul will play out? Like I say, my heart says Inter Milan. My head is saying Manchester City. And I think I'm going to go with my head in this case. Love to know your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, down below in the comment section. Do get involved down there. I encourage you to do so. Otherwise, hit a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Smash on the subscribe button if you obviously enjoy the video and want to subscribe and see more content like this. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. Come on, Inter Milan. Come on, please. For a large majority of football fans out there, please, you're the to quote Star Wars, help us, or to paraphrase Star Wars, should I say, help us, Inter Milan. You're our only hope. As much as I want it, like I say, we hope and pray. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I'll see you all again soon in another video.